Hello guys, this is Althea, and today I'm here to speak to you about a gut-wrenching problem which is called colon cancer, also called colorectal cancer or CRC. It is a cancer that affects the colon and rectum. It is a malignant growth that arises from the polyps in the large intestine. This cancer is very common among individuals in the US population. It's the third highest cause of death in the population. African Americans make up the largest group that suffers from this condition. So don't close the video. I promise if you watch until the end, you will get the necessary tools needed to eradicate, put a stamp on this monster before it even starts. So in the diagram on your screen, the large structure that looks like a big rope, pinkish, purplish, that is the colon. And that is the structure we're going to talk about. When someone has colon cancer, it is within that structure that the cancer is. Okay? So with that, let's go into the explanation of the condition. So another name for the colon is the large intestine. So now I'm going to give you a brief overview of colon cancer. The sources used for this week's presentation on colon cancer is Dr. Freitas, JJ Medicine, Dr. Will Bolsewicz, and Chuck Carroll. Now, colon cancer, also called colorectal cancer and abbreviated CRC, is a cancer that affects the colon and rectum. It is a malignant growth that arises from polyps. This cancer is very common in the population. It is the third highest seen in both sexes in the United States. So both men and women are affected equally with colon cancer. Interestingly, African Americans has the highest rate of this condition or this disease. The risk factors are, of course, age. Greater than 50 years old is usually the time that you see a lot of colon cancer. If there's a family history, So if your parents or siblings came down with colon cancer, you may have a chance of coming down with it also. Another risk factor is inflammatory blood diseases such as Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. Dietary. Individuals who consume low fiber diet are prone to this disease, and those that consume excessive processed meats, red meats including, but especially processed meats like pepperoni and salami and bologna and those bolognas. Smoking is another risk factor, as well as obesity. And the big purple elephant in the room, alcohol. And finally, genetics. There are several genetical syndromes that, if affect someone, makes them more susceptible to colon cancer. Examples are Lynch syndrome, Gardner syndrome, Turcotte syndrome, and Peutz-Jeghers syndrome. I think those are the top risk factors. So next, I would like to go into the signs and symptoms. All right? So other symptoms include abdominal symptoms. There are changes in stool. So in some individuals that have colon cancer, the first sign would be a bloody stool, red bloody stool, or it could be a black tarry stool. Okay? You can also experience pain in the abdominal area. You can have frequency in stool, such as diarrhea. You can also experience constipation. There may be complete obstruction of the bowels. And in that case, individuals will be backed up, gas and stool will be backed up, and they may experience nausea and vomiting. Individuals who have colon cancer may also experience rectal fullness. And by that I mean you'll have an urge to have bowel movement, but when you go to the toilet, there won't be anything. So it's because the mass, especially later stage cancer of the rectum, or if the colon cancer spreads to the rectum, you may experience rectal fullness. Okay, let me see if there are any others. I think those are the main ones. In addition to that, you may have weight loss. Yes, that is another symptom. Weight loss, you might also have anemia, because if you are bleeding and passing blood in your stool, while after you may come down with anemia. So diagnosis and screening. Stool for occult blood. That test is also called a Guaiac test. And in that test, some stool is taken from the patient and put on a little card, and then the laboratory technologist will test that to see if it's positive for blood. Another test is a FIT test, which stands for fecal immunochemical test. Another is DRE, and all DRE is, it's a digital rectal exam. And that's not like a digital device that's being placed in the rectum. All it is a finger examination done by your urologist. Okay, other tests includes flexible sigmoidoscopy, and those are recommended every 3 to 5 years. Also, colonoscopy and biopsy are done. Now, with colonoscopy and sigmoidoscopy, what that entails is a camera, a small camera, is inserted in the rectum and passes up colon, which is the large intestine, and pictures are taken. Difference between the colonoscopy and the sigmoidoscopy is that the colonoscopy is a more complete test. It looks at the entire large intestine, while the sigmoidoscopy only looks at the left side. Okay? And in a colonoscopy, biopsies can be taken. So biopsies are little pieces of the intestine will be taken out for examination. All right? Another test that is done sometimes and not very frequent anymore, but a barium enema is given. The reason why barium enemas are not used as frequently is that that test only catches the late stage colon cancer. So it's not used as widely as it once was. A test performed in the laboratory called CEA, which stands for carcinoembryonic antigen. That test is used to monitor. First, it's used as a baseline, and then during treatment of colon cancer, it's used to monitor how well you're doing or whether you're regressing or so on. CT scans are also used. There are special CT scan that can be done where the physician and pathologist can actually observe inside the patient's colon and actually see the tumor or see what's going on. Okay? Cancer, colon cancer is usually staged once it's diagnosed, and this is a complicated system, the staging. But what the staging involves is 4 main stages, okay? So there is a stage 1, and in stage 1 is subdivided into 4 sub-stages, okay? The cancer invades into the submucosa. T2 invasion is in the muscularis propria. T3 invasion to muscularis propria and serosa. And T4 invasion into adjacent organs and structures. Then you go to stage 2, which is a more advanced stage than stage 1, but that stage, it's very likely that you still can be cured. So stage 2, you have the no regional node involvement in that stage. You also have metastasis in 1 to 3 regional nodes. And you also have the N2, which is metastasis in 4 or more regional nodes. Then we go on to stage 3, which is more advanced than stage 1 and 2, as you might surmise. We have, in stage 3, we have 2 sub-stages. 1, no distant metastasis, so the spreading of the tumor is confined within the colon. In the next substage, distant metastasis takes place. So areas such as the liver and other parts of the body may have this cancer may have spread to those areas. Stage 4 is the worst stage, and in this stage, not much can be done because the cancer in this stage has already spread to organs, including local organs such as the liver and distant organs such as the brain, the lungs, and may also spread to the lymphatic system. Okay? So you want to follow up with your doctor and have your regular checks. Stay away from processed meats. Anything processed is not good. Dr. Will explain to you about colon cancer. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Bolsewicz from Physician Committee. He has 5 great suggestions how to cut down on the prospect of coming down with colon cancer. So let's listen in to him.
This month. And did you know that 142 people die from this disease every single day? But it doesn't have to be that way. And today our goal is to save lives. And to help us do that, renowned gastroenterologist Dr. Will Bolsewicz is here. Dr. Bolsewicz has 5 ways that you can prevent colon cancer. We're going to be getting into that, as well as opening up the doctor's mailbag. So if you have a question for Dr. B, go ahead and post that in the comments or the chat, or you can hit me up on Twitter or Instagram at Chuck Carroll WLC. Just make sure when you send in your question, you use that hashtag ExamRoomLive. But let's go ahead and bring Dr. B back on screen and officially welcome him to the show. Dr. B, thanks for joining us.
Chuck, it's always a pleasure to be here with you in the healthiest half hour literally on the entire planet.
At the top, I was crunching numbers this morning, trying to figure out how many unfortunate deaths there are with this disease, and it breaks down to 142 every single day. I'm curious, how many cases are you seeing in your practice?
I've had days where I literally have diagnosed colon cancer in 2 different patients on the same day.
Wow.
This is not a rare condition. This is incredibly common. Just to put some numbers to it, we think between 4 and 5% of Americans will develop colon cancer during their lifetime.
Wow.
Now, take that, okay? So basically I'm saying is about 1 in 20 people will develop colon cancer, and apply that to your high school graduating class. And that helps to put into perspective how many people in your class that people you know and were friends with, grew up with, will be diagnosed with colorectal cancer during their lifetime. It's a lot of people. And the key here, Chuck, is that this is a very preventable disease. It doesn't need to be this way. And today we're going to talk about some strategies to help protect ourselves. But before I go there, let me just say that 150,000 people will be diagnosed with colorectal cancer in the United States this year. 150,000. And we think more than 50,000 will actually pass from colorectal cancer. That makes it the 2nd most deadly cancer that exists. And this is a disease of diet. Not every country has the same problem with colorectal cancer that we have in the United States. If you compare us to India, we have 800% more colorectal cancer than India does. 800%. If I said 50%, that would be a lot. I'm saying 800% more colorectal cancer. And Chuck, they did an interesting study where they compared the rates of colorectal cancer in African Americans, which is our highest risk population in the United States. And they compared them to people who are Native Africans. Native Africans eating a traditional diet. And what they found was that African Americans had 65 times more risk of developing colorectal cancer during their lifetime than someone who is a native African. And this is attributed to diet. So we have a modifiable risk factor. We have the ability to make choices about what goes into our mouth. And those choices ultimately can determine what is the likelihood during your lifetime. It can't completely protect you, but it can dramatically reduce your risk, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. So I just crunched the numbers as you were talking there. We talked about 142 deaths every day. Well, 410 people or more will be diagnosed with it every single day. 410. That is an extraordinary number that we can bring down. So let's go ahead and do just that. I know that you have put together 5 ways that you can help to prevent colon cancer. So let's start right at the top. What's your number one?
Yeah, so I have to start off. I feel compelled to say this because we're going to talk about diet and lifestyle and the importance of diet and lifestyle for protecting yourself. But our approach to protecting ourselves from colorectal cancer, which is highly preventable, should not be exclusively diet and lifestyle. It should include the best of diet and lifestyle and the best of 21st century healthcare. And we have the ability, using colonoscopy, this is, by the way, what I do for a living, we have the ability, using colonoscopy, to dramatically reduce the risk of developing colorectal cancer during your lifetime. We believe that if everyone who is eligible got their colonoscopy, we believe that we would reduce the risk of colorectal cancer by 90%. Now, not everyone is going to get their colonoscopy. But based upon the available data, even with only a percentage of the people actually showing up, I said before, 150,000 people will be diagnosed with colorectal cancer this year. Without colonoscopy, without a program to protect people, that number would be 300,000. We believe that colonoscopy reduces the incidence of colorectal cancer and reduces death from colorectal cancer by 40 to 60%. So I think it's fair to say 50% less cases of cancer, 50% less deaths from colorectal cancer, and that's what we get by simply showing up for our colonoscopy. It's too good to pass up the opportunity, and the reason why I feel compelled to say this is I'm not just a believer in diet, I'm also a believer in using the best of medicine, and I've had patients who are vegan for decades, who have died of colorectal cancer because they refuse to have a colonoscopy, and that's why I think it's important for everyone to hear this.
And let's talk a little bit about how important it is also to catch it early versus in its advanced stages. So if you're getting the colonoscopy, you find some polyps, your prognosis is far better than somebody who comes in and they found the advanced stage of cancer.
If you come to me, hypothetically, and I'm your gastroenterologist, and I find a polyp, your risk of developing colorectal cancer is no different than a person who has no polyps at all. I removed the polyp. The polyp is what will grow into cancer if you give it time. And by doing the colonoscopy, I can painlessly remove it. I literally was doing this morning, Chuck, like literally leading up to us starting this call. I was doing that this morning. And my patients wake up and they can't tell that anything's different, but what is different is I just reduced their risk of developing colorectal cancer dramatically. Now, on the flip side, as you mentioned, Chuck, the risk of death related to colorectal cancer is very much attached to the stage. If you find early stage 1 colorectal cancer, it is highly treatable. It is curable. But if it gets to stage 4 colorectal cancer, which means that it has spread, not only is it not curable, because it's not, but it also, the risk of death goes up dramatically. And the problem is that you can't wait until you have symptoms, because by the time you have symptoms, typically it has progressed to a point that you don't want to be at. I see patients all the time with polyps and with early stage cancer, and they have no symptoms. The vast majority of people who have polyps and early stage cancer, they don't have symptoms. So you can't wait until the symptoms show up. You have to do it when you have the opportunity to have your colonoscopy, which by the way is 45 for most people.
Well, I will tell you that, this aversion that a lot of us have to getting a colonoscopy, I kind of find ludicrous when you think about it. The prep is never pleasant. Okay, so let's just admit that right now, right? And I think that that's really the biggest turnoff to this entire thing. And so, but once you have that one night where you're spending it in isolation, basically, you have the colonoscopy the next day, and then, as you said, just the colonoscopy alone, what did you say, reduces the risk by about 50% or better?
We believe better. We believe that we can reduce the risk up to potentially 90%. 50%.
There it is.
The total number of cases in the United States are reduced 50%. Because we have a colonoscopy program, because we have a colon cancer screening program, we're able to reduce the total number of cases and the total number of deaths by about 50%. But that acknowledges that there's a lot of people who are eligible for colonoscopy that choose not to, and they leave themselves exposed.
All right, well, so let's weigh that. So one rough night versus a lifetime of health. I mean, to me, it just, it.
You don't want to roll the
The
dice.
rough night, man. The rough night is
Yeah.
definitely worth it. All right, let's talk about something more diet related here. What's number 2 on your list?
All right, so this is so important for people to hear. We need to eliminate red and processed meats from our diet. The average person in the US right now is eating not only their body weight in meat, they're eating their body weight plus an extra 40 pounds, which is a 5-year-old child. That's how much meat we're eating in the United States, and you wonder why we have more colon cancer than in Africa, than in India. I just told you why. Part of the reason why has to do with the effect of meat, specifically saturated fat, on our gut microbiome. We produce what are called secondary bile salts because of the effect of the saturated fat on our gut microbiome, and these secondary bile salts are directly carcinogenic. But Chuck, this is not the only mechanism by which red meat and processed meats cause colorectal cancer. There's also the heme iron causing an inflammatory reaction. There are also multiple forms of carcinogens formed during the cooking process of the meat. Aromatic hydrocarbons, nitrosamines, heterocyclic amines. These are carcinogenic compounds that you find associated with these products, particularly when they are being cooked at high temperatures like everyone loves to do in the summertime when they fire up their grill. All right, so I just told you 5 different ways that red meat and processed meats lead to colorectal cancer. And it is no coincidence that when the World Health Organization reviewed the available studies, more than 800 studies were reviewed by an expert panel of scientists, what they discovered was that the risk of developing colorectal cancer is increased with both red meat and processed meats, and as a result, they were labeled as carcinogens.
That doesn't necessarily let pork and chicken and white meats off the hook here altogether, does it?
It does not, because the issue is that these foods also contain saturated fat. They also can form these carcinogenic compounds. So while there may be a graded risk where the processed meats are at the top of the risk pool and red meats are below that, that does not mean that there is no risk associated with chicken or with white meat or with pork. There still is risk associated with these. They're just not showing up as powerfully in the studies that we found.
All right, let's go ahead and move down the list. Number 3, what do you got?
So let's flip to the opposite side. A plant-based diet is the way to go. A plant-based diet is the way to go to protect yourself, to reduce your risk. Now, is this absolute risk reduction? Can you drop your risk of developing colorectal cancer to 0% by eating a completely whole food plant-based diet? No, unfortunately, that's not true. What we have, our best available data, comes from the Adventist II study. So looking at the Seventh-day Adventists out in California, which of course many of us are aware that there is a very large population of vegetarians, of vegans, of pescatarians among this group of people. And what they found when they studied this is a statistically significant reduction in colorectal cancer incidence among vegetarians, right? So now this is important. This is important because what this means is that you can change your risk. This is not just possible. This is proven. This is a statistically significant reduction in the likelihood of developing colorectal cancer among people who are vegetarian. Now, they did not have an adequate number of colorectal cancer cases among vegans to really look at whether or not veganism performs superior to vegetarianism. That's a study that needs to be done, and we need more vegans out there to study them to really know whether or not that's the truth. But the bottom line is this: a plant-based diet is the way to go. Why would that be? Well, let me just rattle off a couple of things that you will find in a plant-based diet. You will find phytochemicals like EGCG in green tea, like resveratrol in grapes, like sulforaphane in cruciferous vegetables, my favorite broccoli sprouts. You will find these phytochemicals, these compounds, that have all been connected to reduced risk of developing colorectal cancer.
All right, you, sir, are a master of number 4 on your list. Even wrote a book about it. So what is the 4th one on your list here?
We need to crank up my favorite nutrient, which is fiber. Crank up. So I specifically left it out of the conversation about a plant-based diet because I wanted to say that fiber is a game changer when it comes to reducing your risk of colorectal cancer. How does this work? This is what's happening. When you consume fiber, it wiggles its way through your intestines until it gets down to your colon, which is where your microbiome lives. These microbes, they get into a feeding frenzy. They're so excited because you're actually giving them their preferred food. Fiber is the preferred food of your gut microbes. And when you feed them, they turn around and they reward you. They reward you by taking that fiber and transforming it into short-chain fatty acids, butyrate, acetate, and propionate. I am obsessed with short-chain fatty acids. I think they are the most anti-inflammatory nutrient. You and I could do an entire show about short-chain fatty acids, but the bottom line is I'll cut to the chase, Chuck. When they looked at this, what they discover is that there is a direct mechanism by which short-chain fatty acids, specifically butyrate, reduce our risk of colorectal cancer. They can take these precancerous cells and shut them down. And they actually induce what's called apoptosis, which means that they identify the cancer cell and they say to the cancer cell, you need to disappear, get out of here. And that's what happens. They disappear, they destroy themselves. So fiber is our friend, and it's no coincidence that in the largest study to date to look at the health benefits of fiber, they found not only decreased risk of developing colorectal cancer by consuming more fiber, but what they also found was a dose-response relationship. What this means is that with every incremental increase in the fiber in your diet, as you increase the fiber, you decrease the risk of colorectal cancer.
Yeah, and that book, by the way, is Fiber Fueled, a fantastic read. Matter of fact, somebody in the chat already has mentioned today that they're in the middle of reading it as we speak. Hopefully not during the show, but after, again, pick it back up. So just a great read. Cannot recommend that one highly enough. Fiber Fueled. Let's bring everything home, my friend. What is number 5?
All right, number 5. I have to take advantage of this opportunity. It's a little bit self-serving. I grew up in Syracuse, New York. I am a Syracuse Orange fan, and they are playing literally right now in the ACC tournament, so it is basketball season. And I'm saying for number 5, let's go Orange. But what I really mean is not just me self-serving on Syracuse. I'm talking about turmeric. I'm talking about turmeric. Turmeric, that bright orange color. That orange color is so special because it comes from a phytochemical called curcumin. And Chuck, we have tons of studies, like literally hundreds of studies, where they have shown that curcumin has anti-cancer effects when it comes to colorectal cancer cells. And when they've studied the effect of turmeric, which contains this phytochemical curcumin, in a high-risk population that has a condition called FAP, familial adenomatous polyposis. Basically, this is a condition where people are at extremely high risk of developing colorectal cancer. When they started giving them more curcumin, more turmeric, guess what they saw? 60% decrease in the number of polyps. 50% decrease in the size of the polyps. What I'm saying to you is that eat a plant-based diet, eat it in abundance, eat it in diversity, and let's go Orange, get some turmeric in there, because the turmeric is good for protecting you from colorectal cancer.
The Q's finds its way onto the show. I'm surprised that you're here. I forgot that the tournament was ongoing as we speak, man. It is March, isn't it? Okay. All right. So here's the deal. We've got our 5 ways that you can prevent colon cancer now. So you have actionable items that you can take with you starting this very second to reduce your risk, and significantly at that. So now let's take some follow-up questions and open up the doctor's mailbag. So if there's something that you would like to ask Dr. B, go ahead, post it in the comments or the chat. And again, you can tweet it or send it to us on Instagram using the hashtag ExamRoomLive.
Viewers and subscribers, I hope you will adopt some of the suggestions given by Dr. Bolsewicz and Chuck Carroll. In closing, let's briefly summarize the takeaway points from this discussion. First, you should get your colonoscopy done by your 50th birthday or as close as possible. If you have a parent or sibling that was diagnosed with colorectal cancer, you should have your screen done earlier. Second pointer, colon cancer can be prevented if polyps are removed before they become malignant, and your prognosis becomes better the earlier a cancerous growth is removed. 5 pointers given by Dr. Will are: get your colonoscopy done, eat a plant-based diet, eat a lot of fiber, high fiber diet is recommended. Try to eliminate meats, especially red meat and processed meats from your diet. Eat plenty of turmeric. Turmeric is the gold standard. So, I hope you will put some of this information into practice. I know I will. Viewers and subscribers, thank you again for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Hit the notification bell so you'll be notified of future posts that I upload. Again, thank you and see you in the next one.